Hi everyone. So I saw this post on Instagram and I have to do some disagreeing with some of the authors that were talking about this particular issue. Now there was this post that had said historical romance and peril, and it talked about authors, and it's funny because, you know, the person that did the post, they had said, oh, they asked authors on Threads, and I'm like, I don't like that. It's like, you know, you should ask multiple authors in different spaces, not just the ones who frequent Threads all the time, because the ones who frequent Threads all the time have less people getting their books because you're constantly on Threads. You need to write more. Get off of social media and write your freaking books. So I just think some of those people, they frequent Threads too much. And what you end up doing is you alienate readers because people see what these authors are saying and they're like, well, I don't want to read that author, you know? So this one person, Lucy Morris, which I recognize the name, she does a lot of Harlequin historical romance. And maybe that could be a reason why she's not getting a lot of her books read, is because, one, it's historical romance. People don't realize that niche there, that subgenre, is not going to be popular because it's a niche type of, it's a niche subgenre, you know, like sci-fi and alien romances and all that stuff. That's more of a niche subgenre. Not everybody's going to dig aliens, you know? Not everybody's going to dig monsters. It's a niche. So you have to know who you're marketing to. So when it comes to historical romances, us ladies who are more seasoned, you know, the ones that maybe started out with historical romance, that we've been reading historical romance for many years, we know what we like when it comes to certain authors or, you know, types of tropes and things like that. We know what we like. We know what we're into when it comes to historical romance. And so this one here, I'm like, well, I mean, honestly, just in my city alone, there's not a lot of romance readers. And I see her books in Barnes & Noble, and those ones there, when it comes to Harlequin, not a lot of people are reading those. I'm just telling you right now, not a lot of people are reading those. They've been around for many years, but when it comes to the reader space, there's not a lot of people who I see talk about Harlequin books. I have how many of them, and I don't talk about them much because, you know, I have to pick them up and I got to read them, you know? And they're not as spicy, you know, like if you want to get into romance, Harlequins are good to get into, like when you're first starting out. Harlequins are the way to go because they're not overly sexual. And there's a lot of young readers who want sex, sex, sex on a page. So the person had said, not as many young readers are interested in the genre. I will agree with that. Yep. And those that do try historical romance start with quite problematic books from the 80s and 90s, which put them off reading further, when actually historical romance has changed over the years, especially Mills and Boon, Harlequin. Our accuracy, diversity, and inclusions, as well as wide range of heat levels, is unparalleled. Again, when you talk about heat levels, you're talking about Harlequin. And Harlequin is very much the lowest of spice. Even like their Desire line was the lowest of spice. You know, Harlequin isn't overly sexual. Now, they might change to get with the times, but that's pretty much like what you would consider grandma romance, you know? Like my grandmother, for years, had gotten the Harlequins in the mail. And that's what she read. She also read other authors too. Like she loved Sandra Brown, and she might have read Jackie Collins, but those are like older school romance authors. Like those are authors for like grandma or great grandma. They're not really popular with the younger generation, you know? Like for me, I'm not reading Sandra Brown or Jackie Collins, and I'm not reading those. I'm not interested. I never was interested in those authors. I just never vibed with them, you know? So Harlequins, I would say those are for like your grandma. A lot of people will read them and think of them as just grandma romance. But honestly, it's like there are some authors out there in the Harlequin line that, you know, they're all different races, you know, Black, Hispanic, you know, all these different ones. You do have very diverse authors in that company, and different types of, you know, you've got different types of categorizations, because they're really good with categorizing their romances. Now, you got the special editions. Those ones definitely are not, those are not spicy. Those are definitely more low end, more kind of like what you would consider maybe like Christina Lauren type of books, you know? The ones that Christina Lauren writes now. It's more glossed over, the sex. Then you have like the love inspired, which are definitely more religious based. You have ones that are more suspense based. They have darker romances, things like that. They have different categories, but none of them, and I've read different ones, none of them are high spice. So this is why you're not going to get a lot of people reading that line, you know, that company. So for her, it doesn't matter whether it's diverse or not. People aren't reading that. You know, all young people are not reading Harlequin because they consider it more of grandma romance, you know? Next person, Kate Bateman, which I like. I like Kate Bateman. I like a lot of her books. There's 2 books I still need to read from her. That's part of her new series. I need to read them. But she says, I think there's been a trend towards steamier, hotter historicals. I agree with her right there. Yeah, definitely. At least compared to the traditionally published histroms. I hate that term. I will just say, stop saying histroms. I hate that term. Historical romance, please. Stop saying histroms. Hate that. And indie authors have enjoyed the freedom to write characters and scenes that might never have been accepted in a traditionally published book. I can agree with her there. They can be darker, more edgy, push the boundaries. Yeah, that I agree with. I definitely agree with her when it comes to that. And she writes as Kate Bateman, or Kay Bateman. Her Kate Bateman ones, those are usually traditionally published. And her Kay Bateman ones, those are the ones that she has that are indie published. So she knows that. You know, she knows that because she also writes indie too. So I agree with her there when it comes to that. Anne Knight says it seems to be split between longtime fans who want more of the classical stuff, more Mary Below and more beautiful dresses, and newer readers who came in through Bridgerton, they tend to want 21st century stories and Regency get up. I can agree with her here. And I don't mean stories about feminist, queer characters or POC, because those characters can all do very well within the classical themes and tropes. I mean the style of the writing, the setting, the attention to historical accuracy and aristocratic norms. Yes, I could agree with her there. A lot of historical romances lately have felt too modern to me, like especially when it comes to either the dialogue is too modern to me. It doesn't seem like what you would say in like the 1800s, you know, or the heroine seems like she has too much agency. And it's like, look, if I want to see a woman who is equal to a man, I'll read a contemporary. I want to see a woman who is in that time frame where she's dealing with a lot of adversity with either whatever race she is, but she's dealing with it as a woman. She's dealing with a lot of adversity, and now she's doing what she can within, you know, that scope of that time to have more freedom, to have a little more rights for herself. And the man who marries her gives her those rights that normally society wouldn't give her, you know, when it comes to having a job, owning property, things like that, you know. You didn't have it during that time. So when you have it too modern, where it's like, oh, this woman has this money and she could technically not marry, I'm like, that's too modern. It's just like, why? You know, I feel like some authors, because of some problematic authors or problematic things in the past that publication companies said, oh, do this, could make it more sensationalized. Because those books still exist, now I see a lot of these newer authors, they're trying to like overcorrect. And it's like overcorrecting isn't good either. Like you can have diversity, you can have different things in there, but it needs to make sense, you know? So I could agree with her there. There's two types of people when it comes to that. Like you got the ones who are all into modern, and then you got the ones who are like me that liked it the way it was, and then you changed it and fucked it up. And I'm not talking about the books from the 70s and 80s. I'm not interested in Kathleen Woodiwiss and reading her books. And there's a lot of Joanna Lindsay ones I'm not a fan of. I'm talking like the books that were in like the 90s to early to mid 2000s, like early 2000s up to like 2010. That's like a good time frame. Anything else after that has started to change, and I don't like it. I'm not a fan. So this other author, Emma Theriault, I don't know. I'd like to see a revival. I'm heartened by veteran authors and readers saying that there have always been ebbs and flows. Historicals have been around a lot longer than this current generation of readers, and I'm sure they will outlive us. I could agree with her there. I think historicals very much have ebbs and flows. You know, you'll have like a little bit of a time where it's not very popular, people don't care about it, and then all of a sudden it picks up steam and it starts getting popular again. And then you have people who want to write more historical romance and go from there. But it all depends on the author, because for me, there are certain authors, they push too much of the modern, and like the heroine is too much of a feminist, and I don't dig that. I don't like it. It's like, it's too much of that. Just doesn't make sense for that time frame, you know? And I know that there were women out there back in the day who challenged the status quo, you know, that challenged society. I get that, you know? But when you have it too much in historicals, it's just like, come on, you know? This doesn't make any sense, you know? So yeah. So Matilda Madison had said there's definitely a demand for diversity in historical, which I'm so happy to see, because historicals have mainly been set in the UK and Europe, but there's so many places and time periods that haven't been properly explored. That's debatable. I would have to debate her on that one there, because there have been plenty of historicals over the years that have gone and done differently. There's been ones from the Middle East. They've done Middle Eastern historical ones. There have been ones, American ones, you know, maybe like I'd say more of the American West, that type of thing. You have Westerns and all that stuff, which a lot of people don't dig. And then besides Europe, I actually like the ones from Europe a lot. I like those ones a lot. The UK, I prefer those over American historicals. I just do. I like those ones more. I like more of a storyline that takes place in like Europe, like Scotland, Ireland, which I have run into those ones too. So her saying like there hasn't been enough in other stuff, that's debatable, because I have run across ones that are ones that take place in like the desert, Sahara Desert and things like that, you know. So, I mean, there have been ones like that. Was it super popular? No. But I would say, like, there have been ones in the past that have done that. I mean, shit, Joanna Lindsay did some, for a particular time, she did, like, I think a series that took place in, like, outer space. So, I mean, she has done more historical outer space ones. So, it has been done. So, I like I said, I would debate her on that and say, you're not picking enough, you know, you're not looking through enough historicals. There have been ones that have done different ones. They're not overly popular, you know, and they haven't been done like a ton, you know. So you got to know what to pick up. Elizabeth Everett says, younger readers have said in panels things like, why would I want to read the same books my grandmother read? I don't want to learn things when I read. That's actually a really stupid comment. I don't want to learn things when I read. You learn by reading. It doesn't matter what you read. You will learn something, you know? Otherwise, why would you read a book if you don't want to learn? Even a book that you enjoy, you still learn something from it. So I'm like, that's just such a stupid and ignorant comment. And someone told Evie Dunmore once there were too many sentences in her books. That's for people who don't like to read. Honestly, that's what it is. Those are the readers who honestly don't like to read. Because how could you say there's too many sentences in her books? That's dumb. I don't think I heard that sort of criticism 10 years ago when I first discovered historical romance as a reader. That's because you're constantly looking for validation from the idiots that frequent TikTok. That's what you're doing. You're having these young people, oh, well, I don't want to read historical because they think that, oh, it's going to be hard to read. No, it's not hard to read. Like I said, young readers don't care about historical romance. So it doesn't matter how much you jazz it up, how much you add in diversity, they're not going to read it. And all you end up doing is you change it so much that you alienate fans who have loved historical for many years. This is just going to be a niche subgenre that is not going to be super popular. I don't think it will ever be super popular. Maybe it was more popular back in the day, but people change. Now it's like everybody's into like fucking fantasy, dark romance. That's what people are into, So another person, Caitlin Regal, said, I hope from the bottom of my heart that we see a renewal in interest for the genre. Fantasy and dark romance seem to be the most sought after genres at the moment. I agree. But if enough historical romance authors push their books online, we may see an increase in interest. Possible. It is a possibility. And I hope that's the case. But like I said, when you go and you overcorrect and you add too much diversity or too much modernization of the subgenre, it makes it to where it's unreadable. It's fucking boring. Like I saw another post of a person who was talking about how a lot of these historical romances, the main male character is too nice. And it's like, it's kind of hypocritical to say that you think this hero in a historical novel is problematic, but you accept it from a hero in a dark romance. Makes no sense. If you accept it in, what's that one called again? If you accept the behavior in, what the hell is that shitty book? I forget the name of it. It's on the tip of my tongue. Haunting Adeline. If you accept the behavior from that shit-ass character in a dark romance, then why is it not okay in a historical romance? Is it because back in the day women had less agency and that's the problem you have with it? Is it because she can't fight back to where in the contemporary she can fight back? I don't know. It just seems very hypocritical to me that you don't accept it from here, but you accept it from here. I don't know. It's weird. It really is weird. So this other person, Catherine Grant, said, I think that traditionally publishers have spent the last few years leaning into light, frothy historical romances that are more rom-com than sweeping. I agree. Epic adventure love stories. Readers of the Bodice Rippers of yore want more pathos in their stories, and newer or younger readers want stories that have more to say, or at least know how to acknowledge the problematic elements of historic eras. I could agree with her there. I could definitely agree with her there. I think, yeah. There are characters that, like I said, when it comes to newer books, the guys are too soft. They're too nice. And to me, it's like, no. I like, I don't want that in every character, you know? I would like a man who is a bit like, maybe he's stuck in his ways, but he has the heroine challenge him, and he, in turn, self-reflects and looks back at himself and is like, maybe I'm the asshole, you know, like maybe I'm in the wrong, and starts to change because of the heroine. I like those types of characters because they have more of a redemption arc. I like more of that than this guy who's like perfect. You know, then it's like, this is boring. It's like, what has he done to change in the way of like the heroine wanting him, you know? Because if it's like, oh, this guy's perfect, then why aren't these other chicks like vying for this dude? I'm sure this dude's gonna have like tons of pussy thrown at him, you know, if this guy's too perfect, you know? And then we're constantly, this guy's too perfect. What's wrong with him? There's something gotta be off about this dude. It's like, he's too perfect, you know? You can't have that in a character. It's like, it's essentially like a male version of what they saw, Mary Sue. It's like a male version of a Mary Sue, you know? And so to me, it's like, it's boring. There's nothing, you know, to build up from that, you know? So the other offer, I actually have this book, I need to read it. So Faye Delacour says, with stores not carrying mass market paperback anymore and people relying more on TikTok for their reading recommendations, where historical romance doesn't seem to be very popular, it's hard to get new books into the hands of readers. Then it becomes a vicious cycle because publishers won't put a marketing budget behind a fading genre, and without a marketing push, even fewer readers see the books, so the genre shrinks further. I agree with her with this one. Yeah, I definitely agree with her. So, excuse me. I had posted on my stories where I had said newer historical romances are boring and are more modern. So you have turned off the longtime historical romance reader, like me, who loved how historical romances were in the 90s to early 2000s, like I said, 2010s too. I would rather read more backlist titles than new published books. I also check out more indie pub historicals rather than trad published. I also hate how Lisa Kleypas has edited her books for the quote-unquote modern audience. So the few people who complained that some of her characters were problematic, she's now changing. And I fucking hate that. I hate it. Hate it. As I said, I do feel like some of these books are too modern and I'm not into them. So you've already alienated me as a longtime historical romance reader. The other thing too is now they're trying to make these books more paperback. Like these ones here I got. These are all historical. Here's a paperback and a cartoon cover. This blah. And it looks like it's more of a rom-com, which not everybody likes rom-coms. So to me, it's like, I'm not sure if I'm going to like this. I picked it up because I was like, well, I'll pick it up. It's a historical. But it just doesn't appeal to me. I'll eventually get to it, but it just doesn't have that appeal. You know, when you look at the cover, plus also it costs more money, $18.99, compared to mass markets are normally like $8 or $9. Yeah. So that one. Then you got this one here. Diversity. Yeah, there you go. Diverse. I'll pick it up eventually. Again, cartoon cover, paperback. This one here. Same thing. It's diverse. Cartoon, paperback. These ones here I picked up cheap because they're overstock. Like, how many stores obviously had overstock that it wasn't selling. Same thing with this one here. Hate the cover. Hate it. Hate it with the fire of 1,000 suns. Fucking hate this cover. Don't blame the author. It's the publication company. I don't like it. Yeah. So it really doesn't, like tell me like steam level either. You know, like this here, cover story fucking matters. This is even worse. This. That's fucking atrocious. I hate this. Those are books I still need to read. And I got them cheap off of Book Outlet because I'm not paying full price for those fucking books. I'm sorry, I'm not. These ones here, from an author that I love. I love this author. Now I need to read her books. I'm way behind on some of her stuff, so I have to get to the backlist. These are the covers I like. These are the ones I like. These reign supreme to me. These are my ones that will get me to pick it up. If I'm in a bookstore, I see this cover, ooh, what's this? This attracts me. Then I'll read the back of the synopsis and I'm like, I like this. I want to check it out. You know? Like, a lot of the characters in the historicals, like you have a scoundrel, you have a rake, and that's what attracts me. I like the fact of a heroine taming the bad boy kind of thing, you know, like, oh, he's a rake or he's a scoundrel. She tamed him. And I was like, yeah, that's what I like. Like this here, Rafe Bancroft was nothing but a scoundrel, but the sexy, infuriating man was now the owner of Fortin Hall, Felicity Harrington's ancestral home. So it's like forced proximity. Yep, that's my catnip right there. Right there. And I'm behind on my historicals. But if I see this in the store, fuck yeah, I'm picking this up. And for the price. Like the price right here for this one here, $6.99. Now that was like how many years ago? The prices have gone up. I think they're now like $8.99 for mass market paperback. But still, $8.99 compared to like $18.99. I'm going to pick up not one, but like two of the mass market paperbacks. This one here, same author, Reforming a Rake. Love the cover, you know? And like I said, Reforming a Rake. That's like catnip to me, you know? Fuck yes. Here's another one, Meet Me at Midnight. These are ones just like I pulled off my shelf, you know? Those are going to attract me more. Like I said, when I first started the genre, you know, first started reading historical romance, I was drawn to the covers. Even like the ones that were like, had a more discreet cover. Step back. The step back is fucking everything. And now they don't do step backs anymore. So it really makes a lot of readers like, you know, like I don't really like that cover. And I am a cover buy person. I like cover buying. Like I see the book and I'm like, that looks interesting. Let me go and read the synopsis. If the synopsis looks good, I'm buying it. And go from there. But that's your first thing, is what attracts you to the eye. Women are very visual. So what's going to attract a woman to this book? You know? And I know there's going to be adult scenes in here based on the cover. Where some of those other ones, is it a clean fiction one? Is it clean romance? Is it really steamy? Or is it boring? You know? And like I said, there can be some closed door romances that are sexy and sensual and all that stuff, as long as the romance is there, you know? But I'd say a lot of people like sex on page. That's what they like. That's what they like. So someone responded to my story and said yes to all of this. The genre is in peril because of the modernistic books, LOL, not because there isn't enough of them. And all the Botus River books, they had such variety, like literally all races and all countries of the globe. Acting like the genre isn't diverse enough just shows ignorance, which is true. So I responded to her and I said, exactly. And if you add too much diversity into the genre, it really isn't historical anymore. I feel like some of these authors are overcorrecting and it makes it to where nothing makes sense. Of course, historical romance isn't all historically accurate, but authors used to research before writing a book based on that time frame. And what really pisses me off is Lisa Kleypas editing her older books because of the small minority of people complaining some of the characters are problematic. I said they accept problematic heroes and dark romance. Look how popular Haunting Adeline was. But they won't accept it in historical romance. Give me a break. I said, these readers don't like historical romance, period, and nothing they do to change the subgenre will make these readers check out historical romance. In the meantime, all they do is alienate the ones who have been supporting historical romance novels for years. They were the first books I picked up and loved when I started my romance novel journey. And that's the truth of it. That is the truth of it. You know, you end up alienating all of the ones who have been loving the genre for years and still read, still avidly and, you know, actively read these books. All the other people that you're trying to attract, they're not going to pick the book up. They're just not. You're not going to attract more readers to the genre because they don't like that time. You know, they don't like the historical setting because they've heard all of these bad things either about the subgenre or they've heard all of these bad things about that time frame when it came to women. So they don't want any nuanced type of reading, you know? You hear other people talk badly about the genre and say, oh, it's problematic. So, of course, they're not going to want to pick it up, you know? And that's basically the gist of it. I think there are things that they can do to attract those older readers in, the ones who have been reading the subgenre for many years, myself included. There's things that you could do. Stop it with the fucking cartoon covers and stop it with making them paperback. I hate it. Keep them mass market. You're going to attract more readers to the mass markets again because they're cheaper. You could take more of a chance on that book, where when it comes to a paperback, it costs more money, you know? My biggest thing is I hate the cartoon covers. And look, this was a painting. So it was technically a cartoon in a way, you know? It's a painting. You don't have to do them exactly like that again, but you can have something similar, you know? You can have illustrators do those types of novels again, where they kind of look older school, but have them in a way to where it's going to attract other readers too, you know? You could have more of a middle ground, or do it a little bit differently, like don't even have people on it at all, and maybe make it more of a carriage or whatever it is, or it shows like an old mansion, you know, those old style like estates and stuff like that. Maybe have that, you know, if you don't want people on it. There are different ways that you could try to attract the reader, you know. I would say what you have to do more, if you're a publication company that you actually want to have your books sold, do a poll, you know, and say like, which type of style cover do you like? And come up with like several examples. And then whatever gets the majority vote on it, that's when you go and you're like, okay, we're going to do this style, you know, and kind of go from there. But yeah, as a reader, when it comes to historical, I'm doing a lot more backlist titles. I have a lot more mass market paperbacks that I need to get through, rather than those ones right there that I showed you that are regular paperbacks. And like I said, I'm not going to pay full price for that. I'm not going to pay full price for those books. And a lot of traditionally published ones are just so safe now. Like they're afraid to do anything that might be slightly, you know, slightly like a little bit like, ooh, that's a little spice, you know, this or this, you know. Get some people talking. Because back in the day, years ago, the publication companies really pushed these authors to kind of like do more dubious consent scenes or open essay, because they wanted to sensationalize it, like almost turn it into like a soap, you know, or like, oh my God, what happened next kind of thing. That's what they essentially did for some of these authors. Like, I'm sure some of these, like there was some that have admitted that the publication company they worked for pretty much pushed them to do it, you know, to have it. So it's not really necessarily the author's fault of why 30 years later people aren't liking that book, you know. It may not be the author's fault. It may be the publication company's fault because they had pushed it, you know, to be more sensationalized, you know. So yeah. That's it for this one here. Like I said, I'm not into like the modern ones a lot because, you know, a lot of traditional historicals are just boring to me. There's nothing challenging you, nothing to get you to like think critically or to look at this character and you're like, yeah, this person's like not a good person, but you could see the buildup of what the heroine does to change the hero, you know, and make him a better person. So it's too safe now, and I just don't like it being safe. There are some, you know, indie authors, like another person had said, there are indie authors that challenge a little bit, do a little bit more. SM La Violette is one author where I'd say she pushes the envelope because she does a lot more darker in tone type of historicals by adding in like BDSM elements and things like that. SM Violette definitely does more of like that. And then like her Minerva Spencer ones, like because she's the same author, Minerva Spencer's more traditionally, you know, like I'd say that she's that. But then like her SM La Violette ones, like I said, are more darker in tone, more dark romance and more BDSM elements, that type of thing, or threesomes, that type of stuff. Those ones to me challenge a little bit. I actually like her SM La Violette. I tried reading Minerva Spencer, but I couldn't really get into her for that one. But I think I like her SM La Violette ones. And not everyone is good, you know, like for me, like for my opinion. I haven't liked every one of her books, but there were a couple that I was like, oh, this one's interesting. You know, it's a very interesting book. So I have found that I think when it comes to historical, there's going to be definitely a lot more who lean into more of, they're going to be more indie. I think that's what's going to happen. Eventually, I think publication companies might just stop historicals altogether. But I think they'll still like live on when it comes to like the indie pub. You know, I think definitely there's going to be people who still want to write in that type of subgenre, and they're just going to, you know, publish the books themselves. I think it's better that way because traditionally, traditional publishing is sterilized now. It's very sterilized. It's very sanitized, you know, and it's boring. It is. It's so I do prefer more indie. If I want to read something that's newer, it's definitely more indie than traditional. Like if I still pick up traditional, it's just these. It's like the backlist titles, the ones that came out, like this one here. If you want to go and do a year, this came out in 2000. This one, perfect time. That was still a good time for historical romance. Good story, you know, characters that change and grow with each other, you know. Those ones right there are good. So I just need to get to my backlist ones and read more of them because I am really bad at like getting through my physical books. So I think the future is definitely more indie, and go from there. Traditional, these publication companies are struggling. So if they're going to drop that weight, they're going to drop it. You know, I think authors like Beverly Jenkins can still do her books, but have them be indie, you know, and go from there. Same thing with some of these other authors. Like, where the fuck is like Tessa Dare? Like, she disappeared. Like, she has social media, but she hasn't posted a book in like years. So I'm like, where are you, girl? You know, get offline. Stop like bitching online. Just write a fucking book. So yeah, but some of these authors don't want to go through the indie route because then they have to do their own marketing and they don't want to. So that's how some of them are. So yeah, that's it for this one here. But yeah, I had thoughts about it because this is something that I've been kind of like seeing and feeling for like how many years now when it comes to historical romance, especially traditional. Like I don't like a lot of traditional books. I still try to pick them up and read them because I don't want to like get away from traditional forever. But the majority of what I read, like 98% of what I read, are indie authors. That's what I care about. I care more about indie than traditional, even though I do have a lot of traditionally published books that are, you know, mass market paperback. And there are I own a ton of historical. So, but yeah, I think for when it comes to the TikTok like crowd, I don't see that it appealing to them at all. Even when you talk about it, I don't see it appealing. It's no matter how modern you get it, they're not going to go for it. And then well, like I said, you just alienate the original people who have been supporting historical romance for years. You end up alienating me and how many others. So yeah, that's it for this video here. Have yourselves a good day. Let me know in the comment section what you think. Take care of yourselves, be kind to each other, and I will see you all on the next video. All right, bye.